Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here in Cairo to moderate this panel. Beautifully named Jewel of Africa. I love the name. Whoever came up with that name, well done. I'm Eniola Aluko, former professional footballer for Chelsea, Juventus, and England national team. I'm now a football executive and an advisor and investor for Mercury 13, women's football investment group. We buy women's football teams around the world. I'm also a broadcaster and across women's and men's football. I was born in Nigeria, so I have a close connection and interest in football in Africa and Nigeria and the wider African continent. So I'm super excited to dive into this conversation with this brilliant panel about African football's crown jewel, the AFCON tournament. AFCON's impact on the MENA region and the strategic and brand considerations for AFCON's continued growth globally. So let's jump into it. To our panel, we have Sunday Oliseh, who is arguably the Nigerian football legend who is widely regarded as one of the best midfielders of all time. Sunday is a football manager, advisor within Belgian football, and a consultant with FIFA. Sunday, it's amazing for me to be here, sat next to you. I remember as a 9-year-old watching you win the Olympics with Nigeria. So my late father will be very happy to see me. He'll be watching down, very happy to see me sat here with you. Scott Wilson also joins us. He's creative director at Designwerk, a creative agency that's instrumental in the creating and developing the AFCON brand identity and tone in partnership with CAF to reflect the unique spirit of African football. We will discuss how Designwerk have transformed the AFCON communication platform. And lastly, we welcome Herve Dassoundo, head of marketing at CAF, leading on the marketing and communication strategy for the AFCON brand and CAF platform for governance, operations, and competitions. So let's get into it. Sunday, I'll start with you. So you won AFCON as a player with Nigeria in '94, so 31 years ago. It's a long time ago. How do you feel AFCON has developed as a competition over the years since you were, a player and a coach?
Well, first of all, Eni, it's also a pleasure to be sitting by you because I watched you play so many times, and unfortunately we were in the English colours, but I was always there rooting because you have my Nigerian blood. So.
Yeah, thank you.
But that notwithstanding, the AFCON itself, I am blessed to have won the gold, the silver, and the bronze. But I must say that each of these titles, we had to play them in different, scenarios and different. It looked different because as at the time when I played it for the first time, that was in '94 in Tunisia, there were only 12 teams that were qualified.
12.
From a continent that has 54 countries. So it was just the best that were there. And that kind of made some nations alienate some nations.
Yeah.
That means if you didn't qualify, you don't really have too much unless you got to the semifinals and all that. But if you look at it, how it's evolved since then, now you have 24 teams playing. We still have 54 nations, so that means half of the continent
doesn't play
are gonna be there now.
Yeah.
So that means that there is more involvement now. There's more that's feeling of, I belong in it because your nation is almost gonna be there, unlike the case. So you even see at the islands like the Comoros, they're coming in with all due respect. I'm using them as an example because of the population. They are really just some thousands, So that is how it has evolved. But also, the quality of the game has improved.
Yeah.
As at the time, you had 4 or 5 teams playing exceptional, while the others had to try to meet up. But now, you see that there are a lot of the teams have players playing abroad, playing in the European leagues. So I think that is an evolution that has come to it.
Yeah. Herve, the AFCON brand has also developed. Sunday's just told us in terms of the development of the tournament, but the AFCON brand has also come a long way. Can you talk to us about the rebrand that happened in 2023 and explain why it was necessary for the AFCON to rebrand?
Thank you, Eni, and thank you to 𝐓𝐶 for this platform. Look, the initial idea was to move to this old logo structure that we were using, which was, let's say, most importantly, based on the organizational logo, and to move from there to the trophy-based logo, which apparently was the nicest of the best thing we could do at this moment. Because the objective was to make the brand really appealing and interesting to the audience. Thank you.
And Simon, how did you go about with Designwerk making that brand interesting and appealing? Over the past 10 years, tell us about the new approach to elevating AFCON as a brand and the sort of creative and design work that went into it. The mic?
Thanks. Hello?
Yeah, there we go.
Hi, everyone. Sorry about that. So I think when we look at this, I think there's so much that goes into an identity, and I think it's much more than just the logo itself. Yeah. The design work, we follow quite a strict process when we do this type of work. And there's something as significant as the AFCON, for example. It's the pinnacle of African football. So for us, it was very much about looking at it strategically. So we did a workshop in Cairo where we got all the stakeholders together. It was an opportunity for everyone to get together to discuss it. Part of this process, we look at a competitor analysis. So we look at the world of football. We look at all the other competitions around the world. And I think, as Herve said, this was an opportunity to raise the profile of AFCON and to change the actual competition structure, more importantly. So from that, we then took key findings after the workshop, and then when we brought that into our strategic phase, where we start to look at the brands and all the attributes in a lot more detail. So we're looking at the vision, the mission, the tone of voice of AFCON. And I think, especially for AFCON 2023 in the Ivory Coast, I think one of the things we researched quite a lot, and something that as a football fan is quite unique with African football, is just the energy and the movement of African football. If you go to a game, it's the fans, the players, it's just one big party. And I think for us, we really wanted to encapsulate that emotion, and to try and get that within the identity itself. So from that, we then built the strategy around celebrating the movement and energy of African football. We wanted to get that into the identity and the visual and graphic language around the competition. So, for example, the beating drum, the passion of the cheer, the power of the song, the rhythm of the dance. These were things that we started to build into the identity, and especially through broadcast as well. How this then comes to life on TV, and more importantly on social as well. So we had to think about it in a really holistic way, and ultimately brands now, especially sports brands, you're building an ecosystem. This isn't just a logo anymore. This is something that has to live and breathe and manifest it in many, many different ways. So it was a fantastic project to work on. I'm really proud to have worked on it and led it personally, and my team that worked on it loved it.
You mentioned there that the profile of AFCON, I'm obviously based in the UK and have seen just the sort of the respect now and the profile that AFCON has got with the Premier League, with players. The global perception has shifted, and that's obviously tied into the brand. It's a more respected competition. Mm-hmm. Players like Mo Salah, when they leave the Premier League, must give a shout out to Mo Salah. We are in Egypt after all. When they leave, it's no longer that tournament that they're going to. There's a respect now, I think, for AFCON. Yeah, just on that, Herve, how has the brand transformation impacted AFCON's commercial approach and marketing value and social media engagement? I'm pleased to read that sort of sponsors saw a good return to investment. So how was that sort of the elevation of AFCON around the world helped commercially?
Thank you. Special thanks to Scott for the support we received from you and for your team for this brand transformation. Today, let's say that we are more than 400 million in terms of marketing value, 90 million in terms of brand value. So you can easily understand that AFCON has become, let's say, the third worldwide event. And the impact on commercials is, let's say, is purely obvious because looking at our Nielsen report, all our sponsors has multiplied the interest per 3. Like today we had 69 million TV value for our main sponsor, which is Total Energy. So yeah, we are definitely on the most important event for the whole continent. Thank you.
Those amazing numbers.
Thank you.
That's amazing success. Congratulations. Simon, any challenges in terms of the brand communication? You know, any sort of barriers, any difficulties that you had in sort of building the brand?
No, I wouldn't, not barriers so much. I think for us, as I said, I think it's just about really getting under the skin of the project and looking at it in detail. So a lot of research obviously went into the Ivory Coast. You know, this is something that had to resonate both locally for the host country, but as we know, you're talking about a continent, and you know this has to unify the whole continent. You know, it's the biggest competition, so everyone had to look at the identity, and you had to engage and excite everyone. And I think being a more trophy-focused platform now, you talk about the players, you talk about the fans and the audience. Having the actual in the identity itself, having the trophy, I think was even just that alone. I think is such a big step change. I think for CAF, because I think that's your sort of ownable asset. That's the thing that's revered. That's the thing that all the players are playing for. And I think having that within the identity, it was just a bit of a game changer, really. And I think that competitive platform is now being rolled out throughout all the other competitions as well.
Brilliant. Sunday, you're based in Belgium, a strong league, we know historically, for African players to develop and grow. What role do you think domestic leagues, like Belgium, like the Premier League, plays for African players in terms of allowing that sort of respect for those players to go on and play in the AFCON tournament?
Well, there's kind of like, it has evolved.
Yeah.
Like I remember back in the days, you used to like get sanctioned when you went to play for your national team. I remember my personal experience. Sometimes I went to play for Nigeria, even though I was the captain of the team, and you would come back to your club, and the boss would say to you, we won last week without you, so maybe you start this game a bit. And then when the game starts, it's not going well, then you go back on the pitch,
Wow.
It was kind of like those sanctions then, but now it's changed. And why has this changed? I think it's somehow like there's a dark side to it. It's like the world of football has been forced to accept African football because of also the fact that you're talking about a continent that is 1.5 billion people. I mean, what kind of a market is that? When you think that Europe is just 500 and something million people, so that tells you the market itself. And a lot of the players now that are playing for the African national teams are players that are born and bred in Europe or abroad. So these players now, I think it all started with the French, in the sense that one of the coaches of the French national team, with all due respect, Laurent Blanc made some statements at the time that created a lot of about how can we form players in our academies, and then they go back to play for Africa. That kind of like woke everybody up, like, hey, this is a great option to have. So a lot of the players who now feel that, okay, I can play for the European teams, no problem. I'm going to live here, but I will go to play for my country. And that's one of the reasons why Morocco did well at the World Cup.
Right.
Because if you look at them, almost the whole team of the Moroccans,
Those diaspora players.
diaspora players.
Yeah.
Some didn't even know how to eat couscous because they were, they were brought up abroad, with all due respect, you know. Nothing against it. My wife is Moroccan, so
Yeah.
there's no...
Yeah.
And I love couscous. So the point I'm making out is that it's now also the fact that it's a huge market,
Yeah.
and the fact that, you know, also financially, the African nations now have the money to spend on as regards TV rights and all that, and to sell these rights. I think that has made it now more interesting for everybody to watch.
Did you ever have any issues at, you know, Ajax, Juventus, Dortmund, you know, the clubs you played at, in terms of being, you know, one of the main Nigerian players? You've mentioned sanctions, which are ridiculous, you know, to play for your country. But did you ever face any of those sort of challenges going off to AFCON, coming back?
Well, I think with all due respect, I think not long ago we had Jürgen Klopp make some statements about the African AFCON that didn't go down well with us.
Yeah.
In Africa, and did go down well out in Europe, everywhere. So it's not too long ago. So that still tells you the way some people look at it.
Yeah.
But I think back in the day, it was more difficult to play for your country than now. Because now you have a globalized, calendar whereby national teams all play at the same time. At the time, you had to come play for your national team. The league was still on in Europe. So sometimes the clubs felt like, hey, wrongfully I feel, we pay your wages, why do you have to go? We can use you 100%. So I did face it sometime. I was not the only one. Some players even faced it worse.
Yeah.
You know, had it worse than I did. I didn't even suffer it very much, I must be honest. In the fact that I was fortunate to always be needed by my team to play. Mm-hmm. So even when you went, they still felt like, okay, we need him to play. But not everybody had that chance. So I think it's great now. It's better now.
Yeah. Herve, Sunday's just mentioned the sort of global nature now of AFCON. It's part of a global calendar. You know, how do you continue to make sure that the AFCON brand grows globally? You know, there's, especially with talent in diaspora who can, you know, play for their adopted countries. You've got the next Bukayo Saka, for example. You know, how do you make sure he plays for an African country versus a European country? You know, how do you continue to just elevate the AFCON brand globally?
Thank you. Like Oliseh just said, we are 1.5 billion. And just to give you an example, last AFCON had 1 billion TV views. So
amazing.
The analysis is clear, it's there. So the objective is not to just revamp logos or to create nice logos. We want to go more, we want to go beyond that by providing a stronger experience. I mean, 95% of our spectators during AFCON Côte d'Ivoire were ready to go to another AFCON because of the global experience and also because of the design. So, yeah, we will push on a stronger marketing strategy, good experience, merchandising, more driving license, more licensing, brand licensing, and also more connection. Because today we talk about football and entertainment, more connection between music, social media, fashion, and lifestyle.
Well, that's a great point, you know, because I think when you look at other industries like music,
yeah,
you know, Africa has really become a huge brand. You know, it's become a movement. So I just want to touch on what you said about licensing there. What are some of the ideas around how to license the AFCON brand with other, you know, industries like music, like fashion? Has that been something you thought about?
We started during Côte d'Ivoire. I don't want to mention brand here, but we started at a very, let's say, medium level. But now for the next AFCON, we are trying to build more synergies, more connection between music, especially music industry, more artists, more collaboration, and also we should stop using or looking at football as a 90-minute thing, because it starts before, during, and it finishes after the competition. So yeah, we will look into it, and we are also trying to develop AFCON Festival to create like a big platform so that we can bring non-football fans to footballs.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah, thank you.
That's a great idea. Simon, a similar point, you know, how do you, football has changed so much in the terms of the way young people consume it now, right? And young people can be watching football, can be listening to music, can be playing computer games, all in the space of the same 90-minute game. So how do you make sure that the AFCON brand engages the next generation that are consuming football in a different way?
Yeah, I sort of touched on it a little bit earlier, where I think as an agency, you have to look at it holistically, and I think every edition, I suppose, gets bigger and bigger. The identity has to work harder and harder.
Yeah.
The way we sort of digest and engage sport now, globally, is so different to sort of, 10 or 15 years ago. So ultimately what we're talking about, to have those conversations pre-game, during the game, post-game, you're talking about storytelling, you're talking about narratives, and all those different facets of the game now, everything's sort of looked under a microscope because there's a story associated with it, and I think that will just get stronger and stronger. And I think from a sort of youth perspective, we've already seen with esports how, just from a broadcast perspective, how that live and breathes on screen. The insatiable appetite for stats and more information, and how that lives and breathes on screen. I think in the next sort of 2 to 3 years, it's gonna get even stronger, really.
Herve, who do you see as sort of the competition that you're trying to strive towards? Is it the Euros? Is it the World Cup? Obviously AFCON is a regional competition, right? For the continent. But are you sort of looking at other competitions and how they sort of go about it?
Look, AFCON has no competitions. AFCON today is the highest potential football event in the continent, that's for sure. But we are not comparing our experience to Euro. Our objective is to beat Euro.
Or maybe Copa America might be another good example.
I don't think we are playing the same fields, because the potential we have as AFCON is way beyond Copa America and even Euro. We just need to continue developing. We just need to continue putting more energy in our competition. So yeah, today we are holding the 3rd position in terms of worldwide events. And why not maybe after the next AFCON in Morocco, we will be the 2nd worldwide event in terms of football. That's the global objective.
So I went to AFCON last year in Côte d'Ivoire, and one of the things that impressed me the most was the organization, the logistics. It felt like how some of these other global tournaments feel. Sunday, how do you feel? You obviously advise the likes of FIFA, the Nigerian Football Federation. How do you feel AFCON can continue to improve in infrastructure, logistics, organization, so the fan experience, is a good experience?
Well, I personally feel that we all know the social ills we have in Africa, but I think AFCON is one of the best ways to develop the infrastructure in the countries, because we saw the efforts the Côte d'Ivoirans did to make this tournament get to that level. And we also have, it's actually, for me, the most democratic championship tournament, regional competition in the world. In the sense that, as an African, when you go to the AFCON, you have a feeling you're all on the same playing field, but whereas if you go into the World Cup, we all know that the preparations and the size, the number of nations that are allowed to play, represent each continent is different. You have 9 coming from Africa, 9 plus 1 for the next one, but we had 5 for a long time. So what I feel is that the competition itself is changed. It's gotten better. It will keep getting better. And like he rightfully said, we are 3rd at the moment, but in reality, AFCON is number 1.
Right.
Because in reality, the involvement of the people in it the people who travel around, in spite of what the African challenges are, you cannot compare it to anywhere else. And the attachment the people have to this tournament as regards the indigents and all, you can't compare it to anywhere else.
Yeah.
And you know, that feeling of we belong, it's our tournament, it's our festival. You know, you saw it yourself at Côte d'Ivoire.
Really
It was just a party all through. And if I may add something to what he said, the AFCON starts before, because the African must party before. During the game, the African must show off and play. And after the game, the African must celebrate even when they lose.
We like to shake a leg.
Like always, my dear sister. So it's like that. So it's great.
Yeah. Well, the future's bright. Let's talk about the future a little bit. How can AFCON drive the overall development of football in Africa? You know, obviously there'll be some countries that are stronger than others. Egypt, where we are, is a very strong country, and this is for all the panel. You know, what do you think about how AFCON can really raise the level for, you know, the next generation of young players in Africa, but also, you know, the professional leagues, players? You know, what's AFCON's place in that?
Is it me or something?
All of you, whoever wants to answer.
Okay. Look, the event itself is also is so full of potential that it makes all the continent grow in all the sectors, in not just the football industry. That's on a general note. But talking about marketing and commercial, I truly believe that AFCON is the best way today to get the strongest awareness, the strongest brand recognition for all African companies. So I truly think that we should just continue putting our efforts on the brand potential, putting our efforts on the quality of the competition, and then we will clearly be the best of the.
If I may add to that, there's a formula now that I think is perfect for AFCON. You see, you got 24 nations playing. Almost everybody in Africa is involved at the tournament proper, because it's one out of two nations that has to be there. So that already is the masterpiece for us. And what I find that is great, and I saw it with Côte d'Ivoire tournament, was that the AFCON now has become a source of livelihood for small businesses all around the stadium, all around the major cities hosting it. And we saw it vibrant because Nigerians flooded Côte d'Ivoire. You know, the more we qualified, the more people went. In fact, some got stranded, they came back a month after, so, which is typical us. But that tells you, like, I think the formula itself now is great. I don't want to put pressure on them, but the rest is up to them, because they have to sell the product, and they have to make the other men outside Africa feel that instead of watching, you know, I don't know, instead of watching a soap opera in Europe, I should be watching AFCON. So it's up to them to do that. So.
The competition is mature. The event itself, in terms of potential, is strongly mature. And today is a multi-screen event. So we will just continue pushing like you suggested. And
Herve, can you share with us any sort of key things for your strategy moving forward for the next 5 AFCONs coming?
So you are asking for the recipe for the...
Well, don't give away all your trade secrets, but just a few
Look,
things
it's going to be around 4 pillars.
Okay.
First one is merchandising and brand licensing. We need to develop it more and more. Second pillar is entertainment. Music must be fully connected to football.
That makes sense.
Third pillar is fashion and lifestyle. And then, globally, we will not talk about football, but wide football entertainment, like sportainment, globally. This is the strategy. I can't go deeper because...
Don't give away too many trade secrets.
Yeah. Can I add to that as well? I think a big part of the brand development work was to strengthen the overall commercial platform ultimately. And I think with it being a trophy-led identity now, I think you can already see the impact that that's had. And I think if you were to ask lots of people around the world or Africa, they'd be able to identify the World Cup, they'd be able to identify the European Cup, and I think in time as well, I think people will be able to identify the silhouette of the AFCON trophy as well. I think the brand equity in the trophy and raising the brand awareness in the trophy recognition itself, I think is really important. And I think the following editions will build on that and will strengthen it even more. So I think we will help raise the profile further.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah, I've always been curious because one thing has struck me that I think that in Africa we should do a little bit of is that it's always good, like you see they do it with the Champions League. It's always good for people to see something and not win it. So like a tour of the AFCON, the trophy itself, now you have to pay me for this.
It's a good idea.
A tour of the trophy itself
Yeah, that's a good idea.
is going to like attract people because now you're seeing it. Because I remember in 1994, I was a kid. I was just about to become 19. I was the youngest in the Nigerian national team. And we came into the stadium in Tunisia to play for the final. Now, I knew I was going into the final, to play the final. I was motivated like hell. But when I saw the trophy up there, I can't explain to you. I think you must have tasted that, so you know what it's like.
Of course.
All I knew was that, damn, it would be good to go home with this.
Yeah.
You know? And so you played every minute like, I'm going to die.
And that's the final you won, right?
That was the final we won. And in all fairness, I had a torn ligament inside. But I was playing for my family's name because nobody in the Oliseh family had ever gone that far. And this tooth here was already pulled out the night before. But seeing that trophy was like, no, it's something I have to go home with. So imagine this trophy now. Now it's smaller because then it was big. Imagine this going round a bit and getting to the destination for the tournament itself just a week before. I think that would like...
Well, there's other ideas that, I mean, Olympics do that brilliantly, right? That the Olympic torch goes all around the world, and everyone that sees it, that, you know, touches it, gets that special sense of the Olympic experience. So I definitely think I think that's a great idea, you know, to do the same for AFCON.
Absolutely. The trophy too is part of our assets, so this is something we will continue developing. Absolutely.
Amazing. I think we're coming to the end of time, so I think it's fair to say it's very exciting times ahead for AFCON and the next few editions. Thank you so much for your insights. Thank you to you as a panel, and thanks everyone.